she's about.
He's touching her!
Duncan, no!
Hello all and welcome back to another video on the channel. I'm your narrator, Nisha O'Kane, and today's video, why is Egg bald in A Night of the Seven Kingdoms? Explored. As a huge Game of Thrones fan, I didn't exactly keep my expectations too high for the prequel series, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, but I have to admit the season opener has been a pleasant surprise. Of course, the show doesn't seem to have the grandeur and plot complexities of Game of Thrones, or even House of the Dragon, but there is something so engaging about the linear narrative that I can't wait for next episode to drop. We are back to Westeros once again, and the story centres around a Hedge Knight, Sir Duncan the Tall, and his quirky and clever squire, Egg. However, Egg is completely bald, which is not very common for a kid his age, and this made many questions the reason behind such an appearance. Well, if you've read George R.R. Martin's novel, The Hedge Knight, you already know the answer, and if you haven't, I will drop in some major spoilers so you've been warned.
I'll have no more insolence from you, boy. Should throw you over my horse and take you home.
The season opener has a really nice way of bringing the two protagonists together. Duncan the Tall has only recently become a knight following the death of Sir Erlen of Pennytree, whom he squired for, and he first meets Egg at a tavern before he is about to leave for a tourney at Ashford Meadow. In fact, he later comes up with the name Duncan the Tall at the insistence of the little boy who couldn't take his original name. Dunk, seriously. I really love the introductory meeting between the two in the novel, where the bald little boy tells Duncan that his name is Egg, and he quickly comes to terms with the name because with his bald little head, he does resemble an egg in a way. However, one thing is common in both the novel and show versions, where Egg comes off as someone who is really smart for his age. He is not some random street urchin from Fleabottom because he shouldn't have a clear idea about who the famous knights are, like he claims to have. Also, like I said before, the baldness is rather unusual for a boy who's otherwise healthy and adorable, and it seems to be on purpose. Well, the real reason lies in his identity. You see, this is actually a Targaryen who is living a common life for a very specific reason. Egg's real name is Prince Aegon Targaryen, and yes, he is the one who goes on to become King Aegon V. He is the brother of Prince Aerion, and there's an interesting bit in the novel, which you will soon see in the series as well, when Duncan gets into trouble with the whimsical Targaryen Prince Aerion. After Aerion assaults a helpless girl, Duncan is unable to control himself and lands a powerful blow, and he is about to be severely punished for his daring antics. This is when Egg, or Prince Aegon Targaryen, reveals himself and blows his cover in order to save his friend. I find this part in the novel a turning point, as the young boy walks up to the soldiers confidently and orders them to release Duncan. His brother is appalled by the sight of his bald brother, and when he demands to know why he went bald, Egg answers that he simply did not want to look like him. So, you must be wondering by now what happened to push a young prince away from a life of royalty and a life of struggle. Well, for starters, Egg despises his elder brother Aerion in his insensitive ways. He wanted to break free from the rigidity and rituals of a royal life, and one of the first things that he needed to do in order to avoid recognition was to shave his head. Well, we all know that Targaryens have a very distinctive silver blonde hair, and it wouldn't have helped Egg in blending with the commoners. He wanted a taste of a normal life of poverty, crisis, and challenges, and even though his shining bright eyes and face could still give away his identity, at least he had a much better chance without the hair. Of course, following his disappearance, the royal family would have launched a massive search party to track him down, and he did not want to be discovered so easily. In the novel, Egg and Duncan have a talk about this startling discovery, and the latter demands to know why he was lied to. Egg replies that he never really lied, and Egg was actually short for Aegon, and this was a name given to him by his brother, who is now at the Citadel studying to become a doctor. Now, when I think about how Egg ties up with the whole Game of Thrones saga, Maester Aemon comes to mind immediately, the wise oak Maester at Castle Black in service of the Night's Watch. I also remember how he named Sam's son Egg, and it was probably a moment when he remembered his little brother from all those decades ago. Regardless, people did call him Egg, and now he explains to Duncan what really caused him to pull off such a stunt. He had to be a squire to Daeron, who was his older brother, and he learned everything that he needed so that he could be a good squire. However, Daeron wasn't the finest knight, and he did not want to participate in the tourney. He dodged the escort when they all left Summerhalf, and instead of turning back, he went straight to Ashford because he thought that nobody would be looking for him there. In fact, it was Daeron who shaved Aegon's head, because he knew that his father would send soldiers looking for them. Luckily for Daeron, he had normal hair between brown and blonde, and he wouldn't stand out as much as Aegon would, and it was a necessity for the anonymity that he was desperately sought out. But even Daeron didn't know that Aegon would run away, and the bald head became a perfect veil of a commoner to fade away, even as the royal guard searched for him everywhere. If you ask me, I find a greater depth to the simple act of shaving his head. You see, Aegon is only a little boy, and he probably doesn't even understand the full extent of what he is really up to, but the fact that he is willing to part with something that is so dear to the Targaryens, who are famously known for their long flowing hair, shows that he doesn't want to be associated with a family name. This is such a great sacrifice if you think of it, and for a boy his age to pull it off shows that he is indeed the right one to be king someday. There have been indications that Aerion did some pretty terrible things, and everyone turned a blind eye to his evil ways simply because he was the prince. He was was even cruel to his brothers, including Aegon. Now, Aegon might be young, but he knows when to speak up against tyranny, even if it is from his own family, and I cannot imagine a better statement than a young prince walking away from a life of ultimate luxury to struggle in the wilderness. Would you be surprised if I said that his bald head allowed him to become a great king later? Well, I'm not exaggerating here if you look at the circumstances. It was his bald head that allowed him to lead the life of a commoner, where he had no real advantages as a family name or riches. I cannot think of another Targaryen who experienced the same, and it definitely contributed to the wisdom of Aegon as he grew up. He faced the prejudices and problems of a regular life as a poor little boy who is a squire for a knight who is possibly among the least fancy knights out there, and what could prepare him better for life as a ruler? He understood all about equality, that world leaders fail to understand even today, and he realised that without his flowing silver locks, he was just like anybody else, subjected to the same issues that plagued the life of those living under extreme hardships. I have always admired those who voluntarily take up the life of a squire and rise from humility to glory. In Game of Thrones, Pod was the perfect squire, and his character development was one to remember, and Egg's rise from being a squire to becoming king is probably the best example of how crisis can lead to wisdom. I really love the story arc where King Aegon, the fourth Targaryen, ascends the throne as the fourth-born son of King Maekar the First Targaryen, and he is known as the Unlikely because of his birth order. His brothers Daeron and Aerion die, and Aemon joins the Night's Watch as a maester, which makes his claim to the throne legitimate. He is known as one of the rare Targaryen kings who understood the struggles of the common folk, and now you know how his bald head plays a key role in shaping his philosophy. He spends his reign dealing with uprisings, and unfortunately, he dies in the tragedy at Summerhall. But for the show, we will only concern ourselves with his journey as a humble squire to the unlikely hero, Duncan the Tall. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the show in general and the journey of Egg to become one of the best Targaryen kings, at least in terms of his welfare practices. I myself was privileged to be a part of this show, and I can't wait to have you all watch it. Thanks for watching.